morning, Muscatine, and happy Friday. My name is Autumn Schultz, and want to get started by saying thank you to our sponsors, Hy-Vee, Unity Point Health, and Trinity Muscatine, Muscatine Power and Water, Becky Insurance, Toyota of Muscatine, Impact Fitness and Nutrition, Lutheran Living Senior Campus, Impact Lifeblood Center, Harper Cycling and Fitness, Muscatine County Fair, Bayer of Muscatine, and Muscatine Walk to End Alzheimer's. On Wednesday, United Way of Muscatine held the Live United celebration, and I just wanted to name off some of the amazing volunteers, fundraisers, businesses, and individuals that had been recognized for this for 2022. So there was a Game Changer Award, which honors the creative fundraising campaigns, so recognizing Seeded Earth, CBI, Bank and Trust, and Stanley Consults. And then we had the Hand Raiser Award for Volunteerism for 2022. So Katie Copy, Tammy Stein, Senior Health Insurance Information Program, Choices of Day Habilitation Program, and Unity Point Health and Trinity Muscatine. And the Spirit of Giving Award was through fundraising and donations, and this was for recognizing Dennis Tripp, Impact Fitness and Nutrition, Community Bank and Trust, and Kent Corporation. So congratulations to everyone that had been recognized for this and giving back to the Muscatine community, especially through United Way of Muscatine. So for next year's award, because this will be an annual thing, they are asking that you log in your volunteer hours through their volunteers.org, which you can find on United Way of Muscatine's Facebook page, so you can continue doing that to get recognized for 2023. We are going around the world today with Amy Clove, who ran around the world in 7 days, and we're going to talk about it within an hour. So we have a lot to talk about around the world, and I'm super excited because we have Amy Clove here with us, who is hopefully still in recovery after a long 7 days.
Yep, still resting up.
Still resting. So before we get started, can we talk about kind of your history with running and how it started for you?
Yeah, so I didn't really run in high school. I was definitely not athletic. I had done one season of track with some friends and didn't do very well. I pretty much came in last every time, so I was definitely not, didn't consider myself athletic. And then in college, I just started jogging for fun with friends and enjoyed it. And after college, I did a couple of half marathons, was really intrigued by the distance, but still didn't really consider myself a strong runner or particularly athletic. Mm-hmm. A few years later, I kept running just for fun, for fitness, nothing big. A few years later, after I had my first daughter, I decided to train for a marathon, and so I did a marathon in 2005. And I kind of thought that was one and done. Like, I did it, it was amazing, mm-hmm. But I'm not sure I need to do that again. So kept running a little bit, but I started having a lot of health problems, hip and back pain. I would mm-hmm. try to run, try to build up my mileage, and my body just couldn't sustain it. And so I went back and forth for a few years trying to keep going, and finally I just gave it up. I said, I guess I just can't run anymore. There's just too much pain, too many problems. Mm-hmm. And so that was about, almost a decade, about all of my 30s, I didn't run at all.
Okay.
And then in my early 40s, I was still dealing with these kind of chronic issues, and I was introduced to strength training. Mm-hmm. I had never really done that before. I had run, maybe do a few aerobic classes, things like that, but I never really had done strength training before. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that that would make such an impact. And so I had started working with a trainer, and about 6 months in, I started doing a little bit of running again, and it went really well. And a few months later, I did a half marathon, and wow, it just, that was a pretty emotional finish line when I finished running a half marathon after thinking I would never run again. And so, I did a couple years of doing a half marathon, and then in 2020, I heard about this rather interesting event.
It's definitely interesting indeed.
Yeah. So at that point, the only marathon I had run was in 2005.
Yep.
And I was just coming back from so many years away from running. And so when I heard about the World Marathon Challenge, which is 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days,
yep.
I thought it was the most amazing thing I had ever heard of, but I didn't really consider it for myself when I first heard it. I thought, whoa, that is so cool. That's absolutely incredible. But of course I can't. I mean, how could I do that? And so
Was your brain just like, okay, this is like for the elite athletes,
Yes.
you know, there's no way
Yes.
that they would even let me do this?
Yes, this was like, oh, these are people who have run marathons their whole lives. These are maybe, yeah, professional or elite. I didn't put myself in that category at all. No way. But I did become very obsessed with the event. I was looking up videos online. I was looking at past runners. I kind of became a cyber stalker, looking up their experiences.
A cyber stalker.
Self-admitted. And so I'm not kidding. It would wake me up at night. I would wake up in the middle of the night and just think about this amazing event, and I could not let it go. And so finally, I rather sheepishly emailed the race director and just said, so what kind of people do this? And at that point, it was scheduled for the next year. And I gave him a little bit about my running history, and I said, is there any chance that I would be able to prepare for this in a year's time? And I thought he would just kind of write me off and be like, yeah, no way, this is for big time runners. But he was just very encouraging.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, he said that there's been people of all different fitness levels, all different runners. He said if you have a good attitude and you're willing to hang in there, you're going to do great. And so that's what I love so much about this event. It really is not an elite. It's really not meant for elite runners. There's definitely some fabulous runners who go and do this, but there's also just a lot of regular runners who want a fun adventure. And so
I mean,
that was me.
This is a bucket list kind of thing that, you know, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to experience this. And you were talking about Richard Donovan. I even did a little cyber stalking on him because I was like, I want to know who he is. And he's been doing this, he posted something even from 16 years ago, being in Antarctica, and how his journey even started.
Yeah, the World Marathon Challenge is only one of the events that he organizes. He has a North Pole marathon. He does like across the desert. He has a volcano one. You can do Antarctica by itself. So he really organizes these adventure marathons for people. And I love that he's very encouraging and open to anyone that wants to try. There's not really a cutoff for what kind of athlete you need to be. He's open to letting
as long
anyone
as
go for it.
you're willing to give it a try and just try it for yourself. It sounds like he was just very uplifting. So is that where Amy Run 777 comes from? Is from this World Challenge?
Yeah. So I had like my own little private social media pages, and when I was going to start training for this, and I knew I was going to be doing fundraising for this, I wanted to just make a more public platform where I could share my running journey and just be a little more open about it. And so that's why I started that.
You've got quite a few followers that were wanting daily updates, and you did an incredible job with that. And you weren't just running to run, you were running for an organization. And so can you talk to us about what the nonprofit organization and fundraising was for?
Yeah. So I decided to run as a fundraiser for Operation Underground Railroad. They go by OUR. And their website is ourrescue.org. And this organization came about because the founder, Tim Ballard, he used to be a government operative working on a human trafficking team. And he was in another country on an operation, and there were children that were being held in a situation, and he knew where they were, and he had the capability to go in and rescue them, but he didn't have any jurisdiction because there were no Americans involved. Either the perpetrators or the victims, someone had to be an American for them to be able to go in and get involved. And in this particular situation, there wasn't. And so he was like, let's go help these children. And he's getting the orders from back home, you have to wrap up and come home, we can't do anything. And so just absolutely broke his heart to walk away when he knew that they were there, and he knew that he could help them, but he didn't have the jurisdiction. And so he ended up quitting his government job, and he founded this private organization. And so they go into both other countries, and they support law enforcement here in the United States, and they are support and they help with these rescue missions. And so he doesn't have that same kind of red tape where if he was acting as a representative of the United States government. And so this organization has grown, and they do such amazing work. They do a lot of public education, which I think is really critical, because I think human trafficking isn't always what we think it is, what it looks like. And they do a lot of support for some of these countries that just don't have the resources to be able to handle these kinds of crimes and situations. They will support with technological labs, training. They will actually go in and support with actual rescue missions.
Wow.
They train canine dogs to be able to sniff out electronic evidence, which is critical in these situations. They have helped arrest like 3,000 or 4,000 perpetrators, and you think about what that has prevented then by putting those people away. And they have helped rescue over 6,000 survivors, and they have a wonderful aftercare survivor program where they help these people get back into life and get what they need to recover. So they are absolutely phenomenal. And so I wanted to, beyond just this crazy goal of going and doing this thing, I wanted to help bring some awareness and support to such an important organization.
And you've done an incredible amount of fundraising already. Do you have a door of when your fundraising closes?
Yeah, so I have my my individual fundraiser on the Operation Underground Railroad website, and that goes through the end of the month. So through next Tuesday, if anyone still wants to donate, they can. But after that closes for my particular fundraiser, you can still absolutely donate. And you can $5 can make a difference. You can do a recurring if you want, $5 a month or whatever. But any little bit makes a big difference.
Something is better than nothing.
Absolutely.
The link will be in the Facebook comments, so if you would like to learn more about this and donate, that will be in there. And I think that's really neat that you, not only are you doing something for you, but you're also raising awareness during this 7 days. Even in the blitz of freezing cold weather to 80 to 90 degrees, you were fundraising and raising awareness every single time that you were putting journals in. So we're going to start with and I think the craziest first leg of a race. You were in Kovo?
Novo. It's a Russian research camp.
Antarctica.
Yeah.
And when you found out that you were going to Antarctica first, what was your initial reaction?
I was excited. I think it was a great way to start the adventure, and I understood why they did that. The weather is so volatile down there that we had to have that as our starting point in case we needed to start earlier or later.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to have a big time variable in the middle or end of the week, and so I knew why they were starting there. I was also glad to do it first because it was the one that I was kind of most nervous about, just as far as what was the weather going to be like. In the past years, it's varied a lot, and it can be extreme or it can be kind of like a nice winter day in Iowa, and so I wasn't quite sure how that one was going to go, and so I was kind of glad to do it first and get it over with.
Can we talk about that plane?
Yeah.
That was the most interesting. It didn't even look like it was completely built plane on the inside.
Yeah, it's not really meant to be a passenger plane. They just put seats in. I understand from past years they didn't even have seats. They were just laying out on the floor, but they've upgraded and got some seats in there for us this year. Yeah, it's a Russian cargo plane that goes in once a week, and so it's designed to land on the ice, and the pilots are very used to the weather and the ice, and so they were very confident about getting us in and out. But yeah, it was quite the ride. There's no windows. It was very much a cargo plane on the inside, and it was all part of the adventure.
And before the race, you had mentioned something about like trying to get ready. Obviously, you weren't able to kind of do your own routine. You were all kind of confined together.
Yeah, so none of my routines really played out on this trip.
Just out the door.
Yeah, everything was so quick, and we got to Antarctica, and they had the women in one little building and the men in another little building. And I thought, okay, we'll have a couple hours. We'll kind of, I'll get myself oriented, do some warm-ups. And they came in a few minutes later and said, actually, the weather's changing. We need to get this thing going. There's a storm coming. we'll be back in a few minutes to walk you over to the start line. And so no warm-ups, I just put on all the clothes I could.
Oh my
and
goodness.
it started to really blow outside, kind of blizzard conditions, and so
yeah, you were head to toe in full attire. And I mean, I even saw some of the other racers that they were even actually wearing more than, like, some of them were in puffy and looked like snowman.
Yeah, I was actually surprised though, because I had put on all my warm stuff, and then the very first loop I started getting warm, and I actually shed a layer right after the first loop, and then after that I was good. I was good. Running in the winter in Iowa has taught me you really do warm up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yes, I was cold while I was out there running, but I was kind of used to that. I could kind of gauge, okay, I'm not freezing, I'm not overly cold. This is fine. And I knew if I put more on, I would start sweating, which you don't want in Antarctica because it will freeze and hypothermia. So
what was the initial temperature?
So I think that the wind chill was, I heard, between -13 and -25.
Okay.
So pretty cold.
Yeah.
And the wind, when we were running, because we did an out and back, and so when we were running out, the wind was behind you, pushing you, and okay, this isn't too bad. And then you got to the end and turned around, and it was full in our face. 30 mile per hour up to 50 mile per hour gusts. So you're just kind of like fighting your whole way back.
Oh my gosh.
Straight into the wind.
And so you were doing a down and back for this one?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a big loop around the plane, like a 5K around the plane.
Okay.
But because of the weather, they didn't want us venturing out too far.
Yeah.
And so we just did down like 1.3 miles and back 10 times. So we did out and back 10 times. So just kind of shortened everything up so we could lose anybody out there.
Yeah, because one, you're on ice too.
Yeah.
And then you have wind that obviously is not helping you. But your official time, 5:22 for all of that, that's a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to just be able to keep plugging away, and I paused each loop to go in the little warming tent and get some water and fuel, because it was too hard to carry any of that with me when you're out there, all the conditions. And so in my mind, it was just get through one loop at a time, and so it just
get a little recharge, warm up, go back out. I like that. So and they had that, obviously they had an aid at every location then too, right?
Yeah. Some of them, it was local volunteer running clubs that supported us.
Nice.
Antarctica, there wasn't a local running club.
Yeah, there's definitely
we were just on our own.
There's definitely no one local in that area, not for a little bit. And nice thing is too, you weren't looking at the map that they had shared. You were right on the border too, which was kind of nice that they didn't have you go any further.
Yeah, it was just a 5.5-hour flight.
Yeah.
From South Africa where we had started. So yeah.
And going into that, then you were in South Africa in Cape Town.
For the next one,
For the next one. Did you get a lot of sleep?
Yeah, well, it kind of worked out those first couple races because we had to go to Antarctica early. We actually went the night before, so I didn't get any sleep that night. We just flew there and ran Antarctica. But when we came back from Antarctica, we all still had our hotel rooms because we had started out in South Africa, and so we ended up getting we were able to sleep that night.
Oh, good.
Before we started in South Africa.
Okay,
so
that
felt
worked out a little more refreshed.
Yes, that worked out.
So what was your initial thought going from freezing cold to 80s?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely different. Yeah, I had been in South Africa for a few days before that, and so I'd kind of acclimated to that weather. And so the Antarctica was kind of the shock, and then we came back and like, okay, we're back in the warm weather. But it was definitely a completely different game plan for the race. Just the heat. It was full sun most of the route, and so again, I made little pauses after. When I would hit the aid station, just to step in the shade for a minute to make sure I was reapplying sunscreen, to make sure I was like fueling and hydrating. And so a lot of the strategy for these was kind of get through that loop and then reset, get through that loop and then
Were they
reset.
5K loops then?
It just varied.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was, we did 5 or 6, I think this one was 6 loops.
Okay.
So whatever that is. 4 miles and something.
Ask Scott for the math. Don't ask
me. So it was about a 4 or 5 mile loop.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, just mentally for me, just with the extreme weather, it was instead of thinking, oh, I have to go 26 miles, it was, okay, I'm on loop number 1, I'm on loop number 2.
Yeah.
So it just helped me
It made it a little bit easier. Think of it like rounds. Like
Yes.
you were on rounds, round 3, round 4. So that's always good. And then I loved this. So you actually told us you got 6 hours on a plane for sleep, and not even an hour after you were racing in Australia.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Racing that evening, too.
Yes. So, I mean, the sleep on the plane, to be honest, was not too bad. I mean, I got several hours each time, but because we ended up having a little delay getting out of South Africa, which meant that the rest of the week they were just
go.
And so, yeah, we got to Australia, got on the bus, got to the site, and it was like, okay, let's go. So
what, when you're like trying to travel and not only you're trying to prepare, what was some of the things that you were, just something small that you were trying to do that obviously you couldn't do your full routine?
You mean things
like
that I wasn't able to do?
Like prepping for the next race?
Yeah, so, one thing was just getting dressed for the race. They wanted us to make sure we were ready on the plane before we stepped off. And so when I finished one race, I would just shower and change into the clothes for the next race. And so then I was just ready to go when we got off on the next one. Just fueling, I always had my recovery shake and at home, all these normal routines. And on that trip, sometimes you were choosing, do I grab my recovery shake or do I grab a shower?
Yeah.
And do I try to do some stretching and foam rolling, or do I make sure my bags are packed and ready to go? So it was just trying to do all these basic things at the same time with just a short little window.
No kidding. I couldn't even imagine that. And so what I found interesting too was, one, you were doing this in the evening, but it was still 80 degrees even with the sun down.
Yeah, Australia was warm. It was really warm. Probably the first hour or two of the race, it was still pretty sunny. It was starting to go down, so there was starting to be some shade on the route. So yeah, I was just grateful that even though it was warm, there wasn't direct sun for the whole thing. But yeah, that was a warm one.
Was that more dry heat too?
I think it was pretty humid.
Humid? Okay.
Yeah.
And where out in Australia were you again?
We were in Perth. Yeah, it was on the west side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, not, hey, let's take the east side, which
Right.
is closest. Let's go to the other side of Australia.
Right.
Sure.
Well, actually, so it was the closer side. So we went.
Now I need
we
a
went
map.
from South Africa to the
Oh,
west
I guess
side.
traveling difference.
Yeah.
Okay, it
Yeah.
would work out. Well,
Yeah.
that's easy then. And obviously, this one was a little different too. You had a down and back on this one as well.
Yeah. So because each of these runs, it was just our group, and so they kept the routes fairly small so that they could have support available, and just the logistics of blocking off that many miles. And so most of them were just smaller out and backs or loops, and that's what this one was. I think this was like a 12 or 13
Yeah, you had
loops.
12 times out and back.
Is that what I said?
But you
Okay.
did have the amazing portion of it of you got to cheer on the other racers as you.
Oh, for
were
sure.
Obviously, you couldn't do that in Antarctica, but you could do
We
it.
kind of did. There was, waves and high fives.
Nothing
yeah.
verbal.
Right.
But at least this one, you were able to cheer on each other.
Yes, and most of them ended up being that way. It was really great, and it kind of helped with the bonding between the runners, that you could kind of tell if someone was struggling a little bit, or you could tell if someone was really knocking it out, and so we just
kept the
cheered each
motivation
other
up.
on, and just saw each other frequently out there. So that was really helpful. I like that.
And this time was awesome, 4:41 for this one, and then South Africa was 4:35. Do you feel, obviously, temperatures definitely helped keep that going for you?
To be honest, I actually prefer running in the cold, and so the heat
It's
is
the Iowan in you.
right. The heat is actually a little bit harder for me, and so even though my times were better, I think the Antarctica was because of all the wind and running on the snow and things. But South Africa, my heart rate was way high. I kept having to kind of slow down and bring it down. So just me personally, I prefer
Cooler temps?
colder. But
Were you
yeah.
doing any type of monitor at all while racing?
Yeah, I had my watch on me, and so I was trying to keep an eye on my heart rate, especially in these hot ones.
Oh yeah. And then not, obviously you weren't carrying your water with you, but you're trying to get through a loop and then being able to hydrate and get a little rest.
And actually in these ones where it wasn't so windy, I was able to carry some water.
Okay,
I did have some portable water bottles that I carried, as well as the aid station.
Do you have the backpack?
No, I don't like that. I actually used to never carry water. I just hated it, but I found some kind of collapsible water bottles that will get.
Those are really nice.
Yeah, it's just easier to maneuver, and so I started those like last summer or something, and those were helpful.
Easy to just to have with you. And
It's different than carrying like a hard water bottle. It just was easier to maneuver.
Did anyone have a backpack one?
I think a couple people did. Yeah. I think our female winner, she used to always carry a backpack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I think that tells you something.
I've always thought those were kind of neat. Yeah. And then next up was Dubai. So where were you racing on? What was the area that you were racing?
So it was like a public walkway along a beach. A lot of these areas were actually in public areas, so we were kind of mixing and mingling with the public while we were out there running. And so yeah, it was just a boardwalk. You had families out there, just different people that were kind of interested in what we were doing.
Yeah.
And this one also started in the evening and got dark, thankfully. And it cooled off a little bit, and so the crowds kind of dissipated as it got later into the evening.
So it's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more kind of just rest and restore. You had a really pretty view too.
Yep.
Did you get to do any sightseeing at all?
Only on the buses to and from the airport and on site. So we were just literally just constantly going. Yeah.
And then I loved how you described this. You said Madrid was a run and dash, but you did get to meet some pretty neat people. Jorge, for example.
Yes.
Can you tell us your little story about?
Yeah. So in Madrid, our original site wasn't able to accommodate us anymore. We were supposed to run on a racetrack, and because our flights had gotten delayed and our schedule got messed up.
So cool.
Yeah. So they weren't able to accommodate us anymore, and so they had to kind of scramble and find a last-minute site, because you have to have a permit to be able to do this kind of event. And so there was this little village in Madrid, Torre Laguna, I think.
Okay.
And they agreed to have us come there, and the mayor was there, and they had this big start at the middle of the town, and we all ran through the cobblestone town. And there was a local running club that they just came out and were running with us.
Oh,
and this one man, Jorge, he just came up and started running alongside me. We started chatting. I got to practice my very minimal Spanish with him. And it helped so much. It was just this nice little boost to feel the support from the local runners there.
Do you feel it just kind of felt just like a normal run? Like, did you feel like you weren't even in a race? You were just going with the flow of people?
In Madrid specifically?
Yeah, I mean, Madrid, anywhere. Do you feel like you ever just had that moment that you were just...
I think Dubai is where I got the most flow. I felt really, really good in Dubai. I just kind of felt like I was out for a long run, and that one was the most smooth. Madrid it was great to have the local support. We were running in kind of a neighborhood, and so the locals would come out and kind of cheer us on, and were interested in seeing what we were doing.
There was a cool picture where you were actually running down a hill, and you could see all of the homes and then the mountains just in the back of Madrid.
Yeah.
It's like, the views had to just been the best part of it.
Yeah, it was great. The hills, not so great, but the views were great.
Well, maybe the downhill maybe felt a little...
Downhill means uphill.
That is true, yes. You probably had some of those.
That made it a little tricky, but...
You had also mentioned in Madrid, especially this is day 5, your legs were feeling the wear and tear at that point.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple reasons. One was the up and down, because it was a very short loop. It was 33 loops on a 26-mile race. So we were just like running around the block, and there was an uphill and a downhill. So I think that constant uphill, downhill, and then I think just the mental pause every time I passed that aid station, whether I paused physically or not, if they were longer loops, it was kind of helpful, like, okay, I'm on number 5. When you have 33 loops and you're constantly passing that, I think mentally and physically, it just kind of got me a little bit, that race.
Yeah, and I mean, you were on that, 5 to 6 times, 4 out of the 5 days, that all of a sudden when you're doing 33 of them,
Yeah.
were you having to keep track of this, or was there someone there keeping track?
So there's one of the race directors that had all of our numbers and would just, every time we went through, and I don't know if this was annoying to them, but every single time I would make sure I'd like point at my number 10, you got me right, like number 10, because I didn't want to do any extra loops.
Yeah, yeah, because there's what, 50 some people?
Yeah,
at this event.
50 runners. Yeah, and
you don't want to be forgotten,
right? And they told us where your watch is, and if there's any discrepancy, like we'll. Yeah. If they missed us on 1 or 2 loops, but they never did. I mean, they got them all, but I always made sure they knew I had passed.
Like, hey, I'm not annoying. I just want to make sure. I don't want to do 35.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that would make a little bit more sense for the wear and tear. 33 rounds of going up and down hills.
Yeah.
And obviously limited recovery and preparation time. So, yeah, that could do some wear and tear on this. And speaking of wear and tear, in Brazil, you took your shoes off. So that says something right there. You had to run in the morning, which obviously going from an evening to a morning, there was no recovery time.
Well, we did sleep on the plane. I mean, so after South Africa...
The plane better be really comfortable.
Well, so after number 2 race, we were only sleeping on the plane. There was no...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was it. But they did have, most of us were in a business class that laid down mostly flat, and if you weren't in business class, they kind of rotated us each flight. Then you had a full economy row. The plane was just us.
Okay.
If you didn't have a business seat, you had a full economy row, and they gave us an air mattress, so you could either sleep like on the floor or up on the seats.
Oh, good.
And so everybody got to get
lay
some
down.
sleep. Yeah. It was only Antarctica where you were kind of in a normal upright seat. So, yeah, Brazil was supposed to be at night because it's like 80s and 90-degree weather, 90% humidity, and so normally they plan it to be overnight to kind of help with that.
Yeah.
But again, because our schedule got so skewed, we ended up getting there first thing in the morning, and so we were running in full heat.
Oh my gosh.
The saving grace was cloud cover. We had cloud cover for most of it and a couple little drizzles throughout, and so that saved us. But
got a nature cool down.
Yes,
Nice.
yes, I definitely appreciated that.
Rhea, you had mentioned the high humidity. So how was that different? Like, what does that do to the body, especially when you're running, compared to a dry heat?
Yeah, I think it just makes it harder to cool down because normally you're like evaporating sweat and your body's cooling down, but when the air is already saturated and you're trying to sweat, it's just harder on the body.
An interesting combination of weather in Brazil, to the point where you literally took your shoes off.
Well, so the shoes, those came off later after I was done.
Yes, after the race.
I finished the race with my shoes on, and then we basically crossed the finish line. They said, all right, get on the bus.
Oh my gosh.
But we had a few minutes, and some people ran and grabbed a quick shower, but I couldn't move fast enough to. I was, you cross the finish line of a marathon, and I'm like just walking around trying to get my legs back, and so I missed the shower on that one, and a lot of people did. But there was a volunteer there who is a massage therapist who was doing massages at the finish line, and so this very sweet lady. She did a wonderful foot and leg massage for me, which by number 5, was that number 5? 6. That was 6. So by the end of number 6, that was like very much appreciated.
Probably felt good, but then a little painful at the same time.
Yes, both. It was wonderful and a little bit excruciating at the same time.
You didn't know how to react or feel.
But I was really grateful for it. So that, and then of course once I had taken my shoes off for that, I couldn't get them back on. They were a little swollen, a little sore. My shoes were a little wet from the rain. And so I had to just walk through town to the bus in my bare feet.
Like, don't mind me.
Yeah.
Only just ran 26 miles. It's fine. And then, so you ran that in the morning. Then you're finally in Miami. And you're running at midnight.
Same day.
Same day.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy.
Yes, it is.
But at least you were in Miami. But how did your body, how did you prepare from going from Brazil to Miami during that flight?
Yeah, so when I finished Brazil and I realized, wait, we're running tonight, because throughout the week you kind of lose track of time and day and time. So it was just, they just said run, you ran. They said get on the bus, you got on the bus. Get on the plane, you get on the plane. So I really kind of lost track of where we were and what time it was. And so when I realized, wait, we just finished this morning and we're running tonight in Miami. In my mind, I thought, well, I'm going to be walking that one. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm probably just, I did as good as I could this week, and I'm probably just going to have to walk that one out. And I really didn't eat a whole lot in between. I mean, by that point, I think my whole system was just a little,
everything's hijacked,
everything's
basically.
Yes. And so I didn't eat a ton. I got a little bit of sleep on the plane. And so when we got there, again, they were like, get to the start line immediately. And my family was there, so I said hello to them really quick and got to the start line. And I remember standing at the start line just like a little wobbly. My body was kind of buzzing. And I was like, I don't know how this one's gonna go. Here we go. And I just started running, and I think my legs were just like, okay, this is just what we do now. And so I was able to run it, and I think having my family there, of course, knowing it was the last one, all of that, and just having, I think my body just got the message.
Let's do this.
This is just what we do. And so I was able to finish that one out.
You finished at 4:46. And then you also had one of your daughters run with you the last couple miles. How did that feel?
Oh, it was so great. It was so great. It made such a difference having my family there cheering me on, because again, it was another out and back, and so every time I came back, I saw them. And yeah, my youngest daughter, Natalie, she ran out with me a couple times, and then especially on the final stretch back to the finish line, she just hung in there with me those last couple miles, which was so helpful, because at that point the finish line still seems forever away, and every turn, every corner, like, where is it, where is it? And she was just with me like, you're doing it, Mom, hang in there, you're almost there.
And how old is she?
She's 14.
Oh, wow. So, and then you hit that ribbon, and what was that feeling?
So great.
I just see the hands up in the air, and
it was so great. Oh my goodness. It was one of the best moments of my life, really, because it just meant that I had accomplished something that had originally seemed completely out of reach. Like, don't even consider that. Like, completely out of reach. And but it was something that I wanted so bad, and all of the work, all of the support. I mean, this was absolutely a group effort. I mean, I'm the one that got to cross the finish line, but I had so much help and support along the way. And so it was just kind of this culmination of, like, not just I did it, but we did it. And my family was right there, and just their faces and all of our emotion together.
I loved their shirts. Said my mom ran the world. I think it was
and my husband had one that said my wife ran the world. My friend made those for them.
I loved it.
So
And did you get to sleep then? I mean, it's 5 in the morning.
No.
What was the rest of the day like for you?
No, I didn't sleep. So I thought that we were going to be running like earlier in the day, in the afternoon, and so we had flights home the next midday. But we ended up running all night instead, and so finished at like almost 5 in the morning. And my older daughter, she came out from college for it, and she had to leave for her flight literally a couple hours after I crossed the finish line.
Oh my!
And so I, stayed up just spending a little bit of time with her, and of course I was so buzzed. It wasn't like I was just gonna go to sleep right away. And then saw her off to the airport, and then we had to leave a couple hours after that for our flight. So I didn't sleep until I got home that night.
Oh my gosh!
I was pretty tired.
How did your adrenaline, that overall excitement feeling, how long did that kind of take for you to kind of recover after doing 7 days of running?
Well, when I got home, did I get home Tuesday night? I must have gotten home Tuesday night. My body pretty much crashed for the next couple days. I didn't get out of bed for a couple days.
I think you had every right to not get out of bed.
I really think that that I had stretched beyond the limit with what I had done, and so from a health perspective, I don't know how healthy it was, what we did, but from a life experience perspective, oh, it was amazing, and it was worth it. So yeah, I did my body kind of crashed right away, and it took me a few days.
I think anyone's body would have crashed like that. Yeah. I love the fact that here it was your last stretch. Your family was there from midnight till 5 in the morning with you and cheering you on, and I'm sure that overall feeling, apparently I have a couple questions that some people want me to ask you.
Okay.
One was, how many pairs of shoes did you use?
It's funny to me how often this question comes up. So I had a specialty pair that I wore in Antarctica that was specific for ice, for running in the winter. Mm-hmm. And then I had 2 other pairs that I rotated between throughout the rest of the week. So that was it.
Do you still have all those shoes, or they're still in good condition?
I mean, I have them. I don't know how many miles are left on them, but yeah.
But hey, I would at least keep the Antarctica ones.
Oh yeah.
And then you have to get like a shadow box with the picture. I think that'd be something cool. Maybe clean them first.
Yeah, they could use that.
Probably just a little polish on them. And then, especially, you were just talking about you were getting up and going constantly, the nutrition part of it. Obviously, during the flights, hopefully that's when you would eat and they would provide the food, or did you have to bring stuff for yourself too?
So in all my research, in my obsession of this event, one thing that had kind of come up in the past was food, and that runners were often kind of hungry along the way, which is understandable based on what you're doing. It's just hard under any circumstance to keep up with that much fueling and then to be traveling. And so I had actually brought a fair amount myself of just snacks and things I knew that set well with me and that I could eat. And so they did have food on the airplanes, but as the week went on, it kind of became a toss-up between, do you want to wait for the food service or do you want to sleep?
Yeah.
And so what people would do was maybe eat something in the airport.
Okay.
And then just skip the meal service. I mean, sure, there's people that still ate, but a lot of us opted just to go to sleep right away.
Sleep needed to be.
Yeah, and just kind of fuel.
Okay. And what are some of the stuff that you had brought with you then?
So a lot of carbs. I eat gluten-free, and so that was another one of my concerns, was just like, how well am I going to be able to find stuff on the go? So I brought a bunch of gluten-free bagels, just protein bars, different snacks. Just a lot of carbs and protein. And a lot of
easy travel grab and goes.
Yeah,
that was the
pre-wrapped stuff. So I mean, I still relied on other food, but that was definitely a big supplement that I needed.
Just to keep something going, keep your full energy up. So then that was the burning component within your running too.
Right.
So yeah, definitely a lot of carbs. One, I love the fact that, we talked about this, you didn't just run for yourself, you ran for the Operation Underground Railroad. So that link is going to be in there for the fundraising. And I want to share what you had posted a few days ago, kind of just like a wrap up of what the challenge was. Yeah. So, and if you're not, and I'll tag Amy's Facebook page, because obviously you're not stopping with this. You're going to stay in states now or within the U.S. and run. But this World Marathon Challenge, 12 nights away from home, 5 nights you were able to sleep in a bed, but 11 flights, 7 of them were direct flights, and then the remaining ones were to get to South Africa, and the 2 legs home from Miami. 70 plus hours in a plane. Now mind you, that's where she did most of her sleeping. 7 continents, 12 passport stamps, 183.4 miles in 7 days. 2 very tired legs, but 1 happy heart. I loved this wrap up, and I had to share that from your Facebook page. And here, I want to ask you something. What are some encouraging words or advice that maybe could help inspire current runners or maybe beginning runners that you wish that maybe you would have had when you first started?
Well, a few things. So one is to let go of any labels that we have on ourselves. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't a strong runner. I wasn't a fast runner. I wasn't a distance runner. I wasn't someone who could participate in this. I kind of categorized myself out of that. And so just to let go of some of those labels. Maybe at this moment, we don't feel like we are fitting into some of those categories, but we can become that if there's something that we're really driven for. Another thing is just the power of small and simple actions. I love the analogy of running to life, because literally that 183.4 miles in that week, that was run one step at a time. One step. All I had to worry about was one step, and the training as well. And so that's just such a perfect analogy for life and for any goal or anything that you want to work towards. Sometimes we're intimidated by this big distant goal, but really all we need to worry about is what is the next step that I can do today, right now. And a lot of the things that I did for this goal were very small. 5 minutes or less of core work every day. I try to be really consistent with that. I mean, that's small, but it made a big difference.
And it builds up by just doing it every day.
Yes. So just breaking things down into smaller pieces and focusing on the next step. And my biggest takeaway from this whole experience is that as much as we need to be responsible and logical human beings as adults to function in life, there are times when we need to let our heart take the lead. And this was one of those for me. This was completely unreasonable on every level. There is no reason why I should have considered this goal. But I was drawn to it. My heart just knew that it was meant for me.
You start crying.
I know. Okay.
I don't have tissues.
Okay. I'll keep together. But even though on paper and logically maybe it didn't make sense, there's something in me that knew I had to go for this. And so I think when something is right and is meant for us, that we will find a way and it will happen.
And you did, and you had an army behind you, supporting you, not just like your husband and your kids, but the moment you started posting on social media and saying, hey, look what I'm about to do. I mean, you've got, I think, 200-300 people following you on that Facebook page right now. And that's obviously, this is just the beginning of your journey. Probably not doing the World Marathon again, but you're going to be doing more, and just continue raising awareness and bringing in the passion and just like showing people that, hey, I didn't start this as a kid. I mean, this was something that you said, hey, I'm going to try. And that's what matters, is that you tried and you accomplished. And here it was, something you signed up for almost 3 years ago, and it was finally able to happen, and you were able to prepare, and create consistency to make this a reality. So congratulations.
Thank you.
This is such an awesome thing. And I loved like getting onto your Facebook page and saying, okay, are you done? What's the new post? What is it? What's going on? What happened? Like, I was really intrigued, and I kept reading them over and over. The pictures are incredible. The video was awesome, especially that Antarctica video. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine what you were going through at that time. But it was just so neat to be able to see this, and basically we got to travel with you, which is the incredible part. So congratulations, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you haven't seen this, check out our Facebook page for Amy Runs 777. All of that information is on there. The link for the Underground oh my gosh, my brain just faded. Operation Underground Railroad. The link will be there, so if you'd like to help fundraise and keep that donation going, the link will be provided in the comment section. But until then, have a wonderful weekend. Stay happy and stay healthy. I will see you later, Muscatine.